Now you can go ahead, sir. Please
Okay,
read.
thank you, thank you. So as I mentioned earlier, we are taking chapter 89 of the book The World Within, and the theme is Patterns Comfort Us into Dullness. It's a long passage, but I'll try and read it to you slowly so that it sinks in and then we can have a dialogue around it. Elle explained that she had been following a certain religious mode of thought for some time. She had not intended to follow any pattern, but she had drifted into it without realizing it. She said she must not follow anyone but herself, and it might clear up some of her confusion if we could talk it over together. Why is it that we need patterns, imposed or self created? Is it not because of fear? We are afraid of not achieving, gaining, becoming. By following a pattern, we need not deeply exert ourselves to think, to feel. Others have thought out a course of action, and we have but to follow patterns. Patterns we think act as safeguards against failure, pain, and confusion, but they only make us thoughtless, comforting us into dullness. Following patterns maintains the division between the thinker and his thought, between the observer and the observed. Thus, there is no possibility of transcending the thinker and his thought. In following patterns, thought feeling moves within the sphere of the known, the created, and so is ever conditioning itself. Thought is never free to experience, to discover the real. Besides, in the pursuit of a pattern, there is ever the constant struggle of becoming and never understanding and so being. With the freedom from patterns, there is creativeness. So, if we can understand the deep significance of patterns, then we shall not reject one and accept another, whether created by another or self developed. Once one grasps the fundamental nature of patterns, then through constant awareness, they are broken down within oneself. You may not canalize through a narrow pattern the immeasurable flow of life, and since we are constantly attempting to do that, we are enchained to conflict and pain, never free, never open, never vulnerable to reality. If one thinks this way, she added, it is not such a lonely affair. I was confused, and so I went to a psychologist to talk things over. And do you think it was wise, instead of allowing all relationships to act as a mirror for a self-revealing process, which alone can clear up confusion, we choose a particular mirror which we hope will dissolve our confusion. Now, can any particular authority bring clarity, or must it be sought out by ourselves? The expert or a formula can bring about a result, but it will not be self knowledge. Only self knowledge brings clarification, dispelling confusion. Self knowledge is gathered through every relationship, with the humblest or with the most learned. But when we look to authority in order to learn, we shut out the infinite reaches of life. Then we do not learn, then we are not open, vulnerable to the riches of reality. Yes, she replied, I understand what you mean. We are all prone to giving importance to authority, and so we shut ourselves from experience. One should welcome experience and try to understand it. You will not be able to understand experience without understanding the experiencer. The experiencer is not to be separated from the experience. They are a joint phenomenon. In comprehending the experiencer, the whole phenomenon is grasped. There is another difficulty which seems to be arising, that of objectifying. Is there not a danger of objectifying, externalizing to such an extent that one loses all sensitivity, that one becomes inwardly dead? If we objectively examine our inward reactions in order to understand them, then we shall not become insensitive. On the contrary, there will be greater integration and so simplicity. and vulnerability to reality. But we objectify to escape from pain, from understanding, then insensibility will creep upon us. We shall be self enclosed and death follows. To objectify and yet to be subjectively, inwardly aware is difficult. This process is also a kind of meditation. I've been trying out, she explained, the kind of meditation you have been advocating, thinking out each thought, feeling, and it seems to bring more freedom and understanding. I have tried for several years various types of meditation, prayer, and so on. But this has been very revealing and clarifying. One touches greater depths of thought and affection. We know love for or towards an object, in which there is dependence, possessiveness, fear, and so on. Is there not love which in itself is complete? It had its being in itself, it toils not. So, this is the passage, rather longish one. So, we can express our understanding now. Yes, Harshad bhai, please unmute yourself.
Yes.
Yes,
Are you able to hear?
yes, we are.
Okay. Uh, Thank you, Dubeji. This passage, this article is about pattern, and patterns exist in the universe and in nature and in our daily life. In the universe, we see that the earth goes around the sun in a very pattern, such a pattern that it can be the, the motion of the earth can be put into a mathematical form, and then it is possible to predict when there will be a lunar eclipse or a solar eclipse. So there is a pattern, and all these galaxies and stars, they are moving and not colliding with each other. There is some kind of order is there in nature and in the universe. And in our daily life also, we have some pattern, like we get up at certain time, and then we do some exercise, then we have lunch and dinner at certain times, go to the office. This is a daily pattern. But Krishna ji is talking about the psychological pattern. And what it means, psychological pattern, it means following some guru, some system of meditation. Like some people recite some mantra and they keep on repeating again and again. And if one is not aware, it can lead to dullness. And that is what happened to this lady when she came, and unknowingly she was going into some pattern, and which leads to dullness of the mind. And my question is this pattern is the problem or the lack of awareness of it? Because this lady was not aware of the pattern, and then she got caught into that pattern. But one can have some pattern and be aware of it. So how we do anything, whether with mechanically we are doing it or with awareness, like eating a food, are we aware of how what we are eating and so on. So I feel that Krishnaji gives a lot of importance to the awareness of thoughts and feelings coming. And I feel that even this thinking which comes and goes in our life is not a problem. Thinking will come, but the problem is the lack of awareness. And when there is a lack of awareness, this thinking will multiply and it will create many problems: anxiety, fear, loneliness. And in that, our energy is lost and we get tired. So, important thing, the most important thing is awareness of what is happening in our daily life and in our mind. And the last question which Krishnaji asked is about love. Is there a love which is not attachment, dependence, fear, etc.? I would say yes, such love exists, but it is very rare because it requires freedom, from the psychological freedom from all the problems created by thinking and lack of awareness. So I have said whatever I feel now, but later on, if there is something during the dialogue, I may speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Harshad Bhai. I just want to add, I fully agree with what Harshad ji had just mentioned. In the patterns in nature bring order. So there's nothing wrong in having patterns in nature, a routine way of, for example, we know when the sun is going to rise on a particular day, when it's going to set and so on. When are we going to expect a solar eclipse or lunar eclipse and so on. So those patterns create an order in the nature, which is not true in our case, because when we fall into psychological patterns of doing things, then the brain becomes dull. We do it mechanically. So like Harshad Bhai said, so long we are aware of what we are doing, patterns don't create a problem. So the main thing is being aware, awareness of what I'm doing. And that comes in relationship through which we, gain self-knowledge. We know about ourselves. So this is just I wanted to add. And we have Dinesh ji saying something. Yes, Dinesh ji, please unmute yourself.
Are you able to listen to me, sir?
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, I also agree with Harshad sir that pattern has or pattern is there in the universe. And my views and comments, in short, what I would like to say is, in this passage, three issues are discussed. One is pattern. Second is authority for self-knowing, because self-knowing has been highlighted in this passage. And third is sensitivity required for the self-knowing. So these three issues are mainly discussed in this. So number one point is why we need patterns. The answer is, one needs to go for to answer this, one needs to go into deep into his psyche and see what happens in his psyche. Patterns are required for the sane and smooth working of the subconscious mind. If the patterns are not there, then subconscious mind cannot work smoothly. Yes, the basis of this is security, because it requires security. That's why it requires the pattern. Yes, it maintains the division. That is also true, whatever is discussed in this passage. Yes, it also maintains the division between thinker and thought. That is also true. And thought is restricted to thinker when no experiencing of real can take place, if the thinker is always interfering with his thought. That is also true. But one thing we have to understand, that in case of direct perception also, for any action, a past reference is required. and that the past reference can only be taken from the pattern only. If there is no past reference, then action, then the subconscious mind will be confused. And even the direct, your conscious mind cannot take any decision. What has to be done. So freedom from pattern is required, as said by the other, that awareness is required, but not the elimination of the patterns. This is very important, as others have also said, that pattern is one has to be aware about the patterns, and one should try to be free from the patterns. Yes. Second point is help of authority for clarity. That point is discussed in this passage. Yes, that is also true. Person like JK can only point out what is to be done, and but the self knowing can reveal only in the relationship, in that particular moment only, when you are in relationship, by understanding reactions emerging at that particular moment. So one has to be aware from moment to moment in the relationship, and whatever the reaction is emerging, one has to be aware about that. So third issue is objectifying the experience to understand and still remain sensitive. This is the most important point. According to me, normally what happens, if we are in relationship, anything happens, then we blame others, or go for escape, or we say that we try to rationalize that because of this I could not do this, or because of this was the reason. So we immediately rationalize it, or we go into the blame game for the external situation. However, the one has to be really aware and not go into this objectifying sort of thing, and one has to remain with the reaction and see what is emerging. If it's but however, I think one point is not highlighted here, maybe because at the beginning it was clear that the lady was good-hearted, following religious practices, etc. But as per my views are there, it is also important to note that if the intentions of oneself are clear, honest, serious, and pure for self-knowing, then only whatever said is valid. If the person is having vested interest or motive for becoming, then the whole exercise is futile and in vain. These are my views. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dinesh. Yes. Prasad sir, please unmute yourself. Yeah.
Sir, this chapter reminds me of an article I read long ago by one Robert Lind. He writes about some habits. He says some habits are time-saving. If you put your car key at one place every day, that saves time. You don't have to search for it every time. So, some habits are useful and time-saving, and you can go about your life business without wasting much time on small things. So, if we interpret the patterns at that level, maybe they are good. But as Harshadji has said, the pattern in the universe, the patterns in the universe, they are not simply, they are possibly instances of order in the universe. There is some order in the universe. That is how we get seasons, we get monsoon at a particular time, and things like that. The order in the universe is conducive for our safety, security, comfort, and all that. But Krishnaji is talking of neither those time-saving habits nor of this orderly patterns in the universe. He's talking of those patterns behind which we take shelter, some religious belief or some political alignment. You take shelter behind these things. I think I have understood Krishnaji. That is the last word. And I take shelter behind that. Even Krishnaji, that is what I mean. Otherwise, we have our daily worship, daily prayer at the given time. At a particular time, we sit cross-legged and do some puja and all that. And we think that is a pattern. Why that pattern? That pattern is because it gives you comfort. You think you have arrived. There is nothing more for you to do in life. You don't have to bother about anything. No, you don't allow any doubt to assail you. So that is the type of pattern. You don't have to think. The pattern is given to you. Sometimes it can be self-created also. But generally, you take shelter behind a pattern given by others, by some guru and all that. Similarly, political alignments. You say, I am a communist, end of the matter. I swear by Marx. I don't have to bother about any other reality. There may be starvation in the country, but I am a communist and the communism is alone will save us, like that. So you don't have to use your brain, you don't have to use your thinking power. And that is the type of pattern behind which we generally take shelter. Similarly, in the next item, Krishnaji has talked about authority of an expert. You think you have a problem, you go to an expert, a psychologist, and you think he will get you clarity. He will analyze you and he will give you clarity. He says, you instead of having so many mirrors, every relationship is a mirror. Instead of having so many mirrors, you are having one mirror. When you take counsel from an expert, it means you are using him as a mirror. That is one mirror. Whereas life is full of relationships, and in each relationship, from each relationship you can gather something. That is, if you use it if you are aware, and if you use that mirror. So we are all prone to give importance to authority. So we shut ourselves from experience. And experience, of course, he says, it is important to understand the experiencer, not simply the experience. And the pattern, one of the ill effects, bad effects of pattern is that this division between observer and the observed, whether I'm following the pattern, that division between observer and observed is continued. And of course, this thing about objectifying, I am not really sure about it. What is the danger of objectifying? What does objectify mean? What is that externalizing? The way I have understood is that your thought feelings you expose, you externalize them, you bring them out, and you examine them like a scientist observes something on his table with a microscope. Like that, you observe your thought feelings, each one as it arises. That has some good effects if you objectify with the idea of understanding them. That brings some integration and all that. If you objectify them, externalize them, only with the intention of escaping from them, you don't want to really face them, then it is not good. And to objectify and yet to subjectively, inwardly be aware is difficult. And Krishnaji says that is a process of meditation. So to objectify the thought feeling and also at the same time to be aware of it. That simultaneous process is a meditation. And then of course, the last thing is this question about love. We know that. Thank you, sir. Sir, I have stopped.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Prasad.
Can
sir.
we? Can I ask something here?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I want to discuss on this objectifying the things.
Okay.
So my understanding of whatever I have read and understood Krishnamurti is we actually deviate from the actual reaction emerging in us, and our mind tries to escape from it. Means we simply rationalize it that because of this I got angry, or we try to find a cause of it, etc., etc. So what Harshad sir and Dubey sir has to say on this?
Yeah. May I answer that?
Yes, please.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Objectifying it means there is a division between the object and subject. And object can be thinking, and the subject is what we call thinker. So there is a division between thinker and thought. And here Krishnaji says something transcending thinker and his thought. But later on, Krishnaji was saying that what we call this thinker, I or me, it is a product of thinking. So thinking is more basic, and from that a fragment called the thinker or I comes, and then we say I like it, I don't like it, and so there is the interference, or there is a duality between thinker and thought. But awareness is something quite different. Awareness is looking at thinking without any creating the division between thinker and thought. So that in that awareness, there is no sense of I or me. It is an impersonal awareness, and that is what is probably lacking in our life. Once we get that kind of awareness, which can look at thinking without trying to change it, what Krishnaji calls choiceless awareness, then that awareness reveals everything about ourselves. We don't need to go to any psychologist, and that self-knowledge means learning about ourselves moment by moment. That gives us some kind of authenticity or clarity. And in such observation, in such awareness, the problems created by this habitual pattern, it breaks down. And Krishnaji says, constant awareness breaks down pattern. But again, constant awareness is not possible, at least for most of us, because we will be aware for some time and then there will be unawareness. But then again, we can come back to awareness. It depends on how much curious we are to understand ourselves. And it may be possible for some people that this awareness may become a nature. That means effortless awareness can go on by itself. And in that, there is a learning moment by moment, and there is no need to do anything except watching whatever is unfolding. So that is a real challenge, whether we can come to that awareness which is effortless and which reveals everything very, very clearly. So if there is a fear coming or anger coming, one can be in touch with it and seeing it clearly, those problems get dissolved. So in Krishnamurti's words, perception is the action which dissolves all the problems created by thinking and feeling. Okay, I have said enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Harshad Bhai. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Rama Rao, you want to say something? You had raised your hand. Mr. Rama Rao? I think he is not there. Shakti ji, please go ahead. Unmute yourself. Then
Yes.
we'll go back to him.
Yes. Uh, in this chapter, this lady, she expresses that she had not intended to follow any pattern, but she had drifted into it without realizing it. So we usually drift into patterns inadvertently. And then we start behaving in that way. So that is one psychological pattern. And then she said that she must not follow anyone but herself. So Krishnaji later says that whether the pattern is made by others or made by oneself, they take us to dullness. They comfort us into dullness. Because in the next paragraph, he says, by following a pattern, we need not deeply exert ourselves to think, to feel. Others have thought out a course of action and we have but to follow. And here is also this word he uses. He says that patterns, they only make us thoughtless, comforting us into dullness. So there is this, this usage of words to be thoughtful, to be thoughtless. Because I remember I think it was 82, in Delhi, there was a lecture, series of lectures of Krishnaji, and somebody asked a question, tell us, sir, how can we achieve thoughtlessness? And Krishnamurti said, sir, you are perfectly thoughtless. You see, because in English and also in Hindi, when we say vicharheen, we are not thinking. My voice is coming, sir?
Yes,
Yes, yes.
Yeah. A student is going, walking along a path and just uh, doing something, picking up leaves, flowers. He doesn't know he is doing it. So that is doing something and he has not thought about it. So that is also one place where we are below the thought. So to be thoughtful is, like Krishnamurti used to say, that you reach to the dining hall at time because you don't want others to wait or to facilitate for others. No, so that is also part of life. And we don't need to think, and we do things, we don't know why we are doing it. So that is usually a pattern. Now, with awareness, perhaps thought finds its own place, and then there is another state in which thought is not crossing its own area, it seems. And then the pattern is broken. With that awareness, as he says, once one grasps the fundamental nature of patterns, then through constant awareness, they are broken down within oneself. So this awareness, it seems, is the central point of Krishnamurti's message. And one has to experiment with it. What happens, even a small thing like brushing our teeth can become a mechanical pattern, no? Or if one is aware while brushing one's teeth, which is not something very difficult, then the same action doesn't become a pattern. The same is true about thought also. So just this I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Shakti. Thank you. Yes, Mr. Rama Rao, please go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I like to see the thing, the subject in the two ways. One is, you see, we came into the world with specific biological, psychological patterns and tendencies. These patterns and tendencies are so strong and always makes it more strong. The activities build up around that. One part. Second part, in our day-to-day life, unable to face the actuality of this so-called vibrant nature of this thought or something things in day-to-day life, to live in the so-called civilized societies, we create some patterns. So the patterns which we create naturally makes one type of boundaries. That boundaries makes these boundaries unable to see actuality. It may be reason that these patterns, these boundaries, these images makes the brain dull. I see the things, the subject like this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rama Rao. Thank you.
Can I say something here, sir?
Yes, please.
It is also interesting to note that many subconscious patterns work automatically without any involvement of thought. So that is to be, one has to be very sensitive and aware of, about that also. What Harshad sir has to say on this?
Yeah. There are instinct. We are born with certain instinct. So in that there is no thinking involved. Like if a fly comes to my eyes will close. There is no thinking involved. It's like a protection. Instinct are given to us for protecting our body. And then we have developed intellect and we try to understand everything through thinking, but thinking is limited. And so the problems created by thinking cannot be solved by intellect. But there is a higher dimension like awareness or intelligence. When that dimension comes, awareness or intelligence, then we can clearly see how thinking is creating problem in our life, like how conflict with people comes. So the moment we become aware that there is something not going right in relationship, we give some space and not react, and we begin to look, and that look is non-verbal, and that non-verbal looking is lacking in our life, and that's why problems automatically comes due to conflict, duality between me and you, my view against your view, and arguments between husband and wife, even though they are very highly educated, intellectual, even psychologists, I will say, may not be free from conflicts with their colleagues or with their family. So this dimension of awareness or intelligence is lacking in our life. And when it comes, then life becomes very interesting, enjoyable, and we can minimize most of the problems which we create by thinking. So there is instinct, intellect, and intelligence. They are at different level. And this intelligence is at the highest level, awareness, choiceless awareness. And that is what Krishnaji is talking about. Okay, I have finished.
Thank you, Harshad bhai. Thank you.
I would like to add one example, sir, here, whatever Harshad sir said. Recently,
Pradeep
my
Verma-
brother has, can I say something?
Sir, Pradeep Verma ji has raised a hand. Let him say first and then you.
And then come back to Dinesh ji.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pradeep Verma.
Pradeep Verma, please. Pradeep ji, please unmute yourself. Mr. Pradeep, yeah, okay.
Is it audible now?
Yes, you are
Yes,
audible.
yes.
Okay. There is a statement in this chapter: with the freedom from patterns, there is creativeness. With the freedom from pattern, there is creativeness. I think logical thinking leads to such conclusions. Whether this creativity, what is called creativeness or creativity, is without man, because at times we have heard that wherever the man is included in any way, then it is not creative. If yes, then it cannot be whole. Man has to be an important part. You see, if it has to be a holistic, we listeners are human beings using our minds. There is no doubt about it. So we have to see what type of creativity without pattern. Without pattern, there is creativity. And who says that?
Yeah. May,
Yes,
may I
please.
say?
Yeah,
Yes. Generally, we think that creativity is an activity, but I feel that creativity is a state in which we see things very clearly, whether it is object like a tree or a mountain or even the thinking which arises. So I consider creativity is a state in which we see things, everything very clear. Okay, I finish.
So I will just ask another, whether this relates to seeing only, okay? So the creation, you see, the creativity and the creator, ultimately someone becomes a creative person. We call, this is a very common thing, we call some people, someone creative. Otherwise, simply, if simply seeing is creativity, then why it is called creativity?
Yeah.
Okay, we can, I think it's a good question Vermaji has asked, so people can think about it. And Dinesh ji, please go ahead.
Before I give the example, which I was trying to give earlier, my understanding what Vermaji said about that is, despite of if the wisdom is there and one is having freedom from the patterns, then creativity can be there. Like whatever, like in our life, we many time see some insight or we get some insight, despite of our old patterns and despite of our other bondage, still we get the insight. So I don't think there is any such limitation that if the pattern is completely eliminated, then only there will be creativity. That's what my feeling is. Another, I wanted to add the example. Recently, my brother got EV, but he could not drive it because he was having patterns of driving, earlier driving of normal vehicle, which is having gear and all that. So he has to put a lot of attention to drive that vehicle, and he has to do some practice, and then only he could drive it. So attention is required, as awareness and attention. I think they are in this reference, they are synonym. That's what I think. Thank you.
We have Mr. Rajendran raising his hand. Please go ahead, sir. Ask your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Good evening. I joined very late. So just I want to add something to the point of that creativity.
Put on your video, sir. Is it possible to put on the
No,
video?
no. I was just got up from bed. I am from calling from years. I am not even.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. I am not in the formal attire. Okay. So I will come to you, sir. I am from Las Gatos. I am speaking, joining the meeting.
Okay.
So when Krishnaji says, let's not quote Krishnaji, how long we are going to quote Krishnaji forever? So, so what I'm telling is, when the thought becomes silent, we are not making the thought silent. Thought sees in its thought may see. Sir, I'm not very certain about it. I'm trying to see it. When the thought may see its own limitation, its own incompleteness, the thought may find its own place and keep quiet. So there is, in that silence, Krishnaji says, sorry, I am also quoting Krishnamurti. So in that silence, the creativity comes. Is it true, sir? The way is few seconds before he told, okay, let us think about it, about creativity. We cannot think about creativity, sir. We cannot use the only too powerful tool, the thought. That is the problem. We cannot use the thought itself to think about the creativity, because the creativity is beyond thought. Many singers, many musicians, even many scientists, they discovered something when the thought is silent, sir. In the ecstasy, in the quietness only, they discovered many things. Sorry, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Rightly said. Yes, Dinesh ji. Unmute, yeah.
I was also trying to say the same thing, that despite of pattern, if one has understood the limitation of pattern and is aware of them, then creativity may take place despite of pattern. What Dubey sir has to say?
I agree. I would not say that if you are aware of the pattern, you become creative. Whatever you become, let's be aware of what.
Ah,
Okay, Kamlesh ji and then Shakti ji again. Kamlesh ji, please unmute. Yeah. Unmute. You are again
You are
muted.
muted again.
Yeah.
Sir, basically there is one point of objectifying, and that has to be seen in a very wide perspective, because everything related to the self is only subjective. And as JK has mentioned everywhere, that simple awareness is subjective awareness, then he refers to it as passive awareness and choiceless awareness. Therefore, it should be clearly seen in the mind itself that when he is pointing to choiceless awareness, he is clearly keeping the subjective version away, and he is only seeing things as objects itself. I have to add only one thing to it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Kamlesh ji. Thank you. Shakti ji, please unmute yourself.
See, I also wanted to say something about this question of objectifying. And this, when Krishna ji said that in this chapter, that you will not be able to understand experience without understanding the experiencer. The experiencer is not to be separated from the experience. They are a joint phenomenon. In comprehending the experiencer, the whole phenomenon is grasped. And then this lady asks that there can be a danger of objectifying, externalizing to such an extent that one loses all the sensitivity. You see, it can be that, as some people do in some schools of sadhana, they do it like, I am watching my anger and I say, this is not me. I am separate from it. I have objectified that. And in that, I have taken myself out of it. So that is one way of watching. Then Krishna ji is saying about that if we objectify to escape from pain, from understanding, then insensibility will creep upon us. If I want to understand my pain, my sadness, whatever feeling that is going on, or I want to resolve it, to escape from it. So if I'm escaping from it, then that objectifying becomes a cause for insensibility. But he also points out that if we objectify, examine our inward reactions in order to understand them, then we shall not become insensitive. On the contrary, there will be greater integration and so simplicity and vulnerability to reality. So this is a different way of looking, about which he says to objectify and yet to be subjectively, inwardly aware is difficult. This process is also a kind of meditation. So we separate ourselves as experiencer, and then we watch, and then it becomes a trajectory which is different. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Shakti ji. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we have run out of comments now.
Yeah, maybe I can make.
Yes, please.
Like sometimes people, even maybe Krishnaji also said, can thought be aware of itself? But then you have introduced the word aware, and I feel that thinking and feeling, it cannot see the whole of itself. But when a possibility happens coming out from thinking and feeling, it's like coming in a different dimension. Sometimes I say thinking and feeling is like a two-dimensional surface, and then awareness or intelligence is in the third dimension above this surface. And from the above, one can see what this thinking and feeling, how they are arising. So awareness, in my view, or intelligence is in a different dimension. It is not verbal. Thinking and feeling, they are mostly verbal, whereas awareness is non-verbal, and that non-verbal awareness can see how these words are formed and how thoughts arising. And this is something, when it really happens in one's life, then one feels something new has happened. Otherwise, it is just thinking, asking questions, analyzing, and discussing. All this activity goes on as long as we are living in the plane of thinking and feeling. But when this non-verbal seeing comes, then we don't need to ask anybody. We don't need to go to any psychologist to read Krishnamurti also, but one can see whatever is unfolding within our own mind, and that is a direct learning. And that is the real creativity or beauty. That is what I would consider. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Harshad. Well, I think I tend to agree with Harshad Bhai on this account that, I mean, the awareness comes only when the thought somehow has become silent. And by the time you know about it, you're not aware. But if one is really, as using Harshadji's word, curious, then even during awareness, one can see thoughts. One can see thoughts coming up. So they don't really create problems in awareness. But perhaps one need a bigger sadhak, somebody who has really gone deeply into oneself is possible there. Yes. We'll go to Pradeep, Mr. Pradeep Verma, then Dinesh ji, and then Shakti ji. Pradeep ji, can we see you also if it is possible?
Because that creates something problem. I think earlier it created. I will just do that.
Try that, and if it is not working, then you can become.
I will just
you can vanish and make it just audio. Yes, we can see.
Whether you can hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
So that first thing, little clarification from Harshad Bhai about non-verbal awareness. Immediately something came to me. Awareness of what? Awareness of what? And that what is in the form of some knowledge, some words, something, some pattern. Awareness of what? Awareness per se has no meaning. You see, awareness of what? So the words come rushing there, first thing. This is what I think about. Then creativity, Rajendran ji was talking about discoveries and some musicians
Verma ji, your voice is breaking, sir.
entering into that domain,
Better you become
crossing
invisible.
their limitedness.
You can close your
Ah,
video. Yeah.
yes, I have done it. Now is it
Yeah, it's okay.
It is
okay?
okay.
So Rajendran ji was talking about creativity, and he was citing examples of scientists and certain musicians who enter into a different domain, different dimension beyond their limitedness. I can understand that. But the same instrument is used, and he's credited for that. Wherever it has happened, wherever the discovery has happened, or whether certain musical notes, some extra musical notes, some spirituality has come through his thing. So that instrument is not negative. You see, the only limitedness is negative. So that's why then only it makes it whole. You see, so that creativity for me has to include the instrument through which it works. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Pradeep.
Yeah. May I say something?
Yes, please.
Pradeep ji asked awareness of what? I would say awareness is non-verbal, and if I am looking at a tree or a flower, I don't say that I am looking at a tree or a flower, but somebody comes and asks me, what are you looking at? Then I may say, I am looking at a tree. Otherwise, you just look and you don't say anything. And that awareness can also see if there is any thinking is arising in you. And sometimes there may be no thinking also. Then there is silence. Then you can call it a pure awareness. And that is a kind of a regeneration of your body and mind. So awareness is non-verbal, and unless a person really has felt it in his life, he may not, or he or she may not understand what this awareness is. And we use this word awareness very loosely. And a lady said, I am aware of my thinking, but I am not free of many problems. So that kind of awareness is only a thinking only. It is not a true awareness. Because Krishna ji also said, in the light of awareness, all problems created by thinking are dissolved. So when a real awareness, non-verbal awareness comes, then one can really see any object clearly. And even one can see the unfolding of one's own mind. And when thoughts are coming, they don't create any problem because they are just thoughts. They come on their own and then they go away. Or one can even create thought and one doesn't get entangled in this kind of thoughts as long as that awareness is there. But when the awareness is not there, thoughts can multiply on its own and can create fear, anger, jealousy, all these problems arise. So awareness is not of anything. It is a non-verbal state. But if somebody asks a question, you can describe it. But what is described is not what it is. And that is why Krishna ji says, the word is not the thing. The word awareness is not real awareness. Okay, I finish.
Thank you. Thank you, Harshad. Yes, Dinesh, please go ahead.
I wanted to ask Harshad sir the same thing. Is there any polarity exists between awareness and thought feeling? Are they separated? What my understanding is, awareness permits through thought also.
Okay, I give an analogy that if you are sitting alone in a room and the door is open, your eyes are open, and somebody enters through the door, and you know that somebody has entered. Otherwise, the room is empty. So same way, our mind is like that in a state of emptiness. And if a thought enters, then you know a thought has come. Otherwise, there is a state of emptiness, but it is awareness. It is not, though there is no thoughts, but there is awareness. And a thought cannot lead to awareness. Thought cannot be aware of awareness, but awareness can look at thought clearly. So awareness is in a higher dimension, I feel. Yeah.
So it means it permits thought feeling also.
Yes, yes, yeah, yes. Thought feeling can come and go, no problem with it.
Another very gross example, Dinesh, would be that the room you're sitting in, the light is on, the fan is moving. You are not thinking about them, but you are aware that that is happening. There is light and there is fan. That is awareness. It's there. But the moment thought comes in, then you start judging it, you give some label to it and so on.
So it means awareness itself is an instrument.
No, it's not an instrument. I don't know what you call it really, because an instrument is something which you can achieve by following a route. But awareness is something which happens. You don't know how.
By that you get the senses data, isn't it?
You get what? Say that again.
Senses data, cognizance of that you get via awareness only, isn't it?
Let's examine this. There are certain sensory perceptions.
Harshad sir.
Yeah.
Which come by
Like you can smell, you can see things, trace, and in that awareness, there may be no thinking that there is a tree. There is no thinking that there is some fragrance is coming, and so on. One can even speak, but there is no feeling that somebody I am speaking. It is just happening, Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Shakti ji, and then we'll have Prasad sir, and then Mr. Rama Rao. Yes, Shakti ji, please go ahead.
Yes, sir. This about awareness. You see, when I look within myself, I don't see this duality of I and thought. I am thought. I have not encountered anything within me existentially which is something else than thought. And it is true, when there is attention, mechanical thought subsides. But at the same time, the capacity to think it sharpens if it is necessary. And this is also true about when there is inattention, when there is unawareness. There is a lot of mechanical thought, a lot of mechanical feeling, which in fact is a pattern. So this, whether I is aware or thought is aware, for me, both of them are same. This is, I am telling, when I look within myself. Somebody else's experience can be different. Thank you, sir.
Prasad sir.
Sir, I am trying to responded to Mr. Pradeep Verma's comment, what are you aware of? I think there is a lot of sense in that question, because this phrase, non-verbal awareness, doesn't really make sense to me. There is nothing like verbal awareness and a non-verbal awareness. Awareness is awareness of an object, or of a thought, or of a feeling. But it is not there is nothing like a verbal awareness or an articulate awareness and a non-verbal awareness or inarticulate awareness. There are not so many categories in awareness. Awareness is a state of the mind. And for me, there are no such illusions. I am aware of something. When there is nothing, there is silence. When there is nothing arising in the brain, yes, there is silence. That is also, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Rama Rao.
Sir, what I want to say already that Shaktiji told,
Okay.
so no need to mention extra.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So we'll take the last question from Mr. Pradeep Verma. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
No question, but when I look at a little, Prasad ji has clarified certain things, what I wanted to say or what the question was in me. When I look at a flower, I know clearly that it's a flower. No conflict, no problems in me. I see it clearly. So, but that flower, F-L-O-W-E-R, flower, and tree, and this herb or shrub, all that knowledge is there in me. All that thing in the form of words, it is there already. It only comes out. I may not be able to see certain very minute changes which happened just 5 minutes back. But otherwise, it is always in the form of words. Now, words to come and words that are already there. So this is what I think, awareness of that's a simple thing. Otherwise, awareness per se absolutely has no meaning to me. Thank you very much, Dubey ji.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Dubey ji, may I make a comment?
Yes, please.
Just 1 minute only.
Yeah,
Like
sure.
Krishna ji said to one artist, the word parrot has blocked you from looking at the thing which flies. So as long as a person has not looked at that thing, whether it is a flower, without the word, then all this thing will become very confusing, very conflicting. And the other thing is what Shakti ji said, that thinker and thought, he has felt they are both same. But when there is conflict, like when you say, let's say a person has a habit of smoking and he wants to be free from smoking, then there is a conflict between what is and what should be. That indicates that there is this division exists, that there is a strong entity called I, which wants to get rid of thoughts which are not good, which a person says, I like it, I don't like it. So this conflict between thinker and thought, it goes on in the life of most human beings when they are trying to be free from something which they don't like. But when there is awareness, when there is a freedom, when there is a non-verbal looking, then one doesn't say anything and there is no duality exists. That is what I feel. Okay, finish.
Thank you, Harshad bhai. Thank you. I think I can
Sir,
close it
Sir,
now.
please declare the lecture of Sunday of Javier at 11 a.m.
Okay.
Please say.
Next Sunday we have Javier Parekh. He's from Netherlands. As you all know, he'll be talking to us on a subject which is meeting the enemy, an inquiry into the nature of time. Javier is running a regular course online, which is on introduction of Krishnamurti and his teachings. So, if anyone is interested, you can do that. Join that group, and it is free, by the way. So you can go join and see what he will talk about. He's a very good orator. So we look forward to all of you joining us on Sunday, that is 24th at 11 a.m. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you,
Thank
Dubey,
you.
for
Thank you.
Javier to us.
Thank you.
I am grateful to you for Javier.
Sorry. Thank you. Thank you. We should be
Thank you.
grateful.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Please close it.